We're off and running. So Gael Dutigny, you got to say it right.
Gael Dutigny.
Yeah. See, you got an American schmuck trying to speak French. Yeah, you have 2 dots in your first name that we don't even have in American English. So
guess not.
So it's going to be Gael today because that's about all I can do.
That's fine. That's what my wife says.
Right.
She's American. That's what she says.
Well, listen, give me a little skin. Welcome to the Passion Project. Super stoked to have you here. Thank you. We were talking offline that, you know, a lot of times I have people in here. Most of the guests I've had on thus far are people that I either know directly or one degree. But we were introduced by a friend, a good mutual friend named Ron, which is funny that you play pickleball with him because when people learn about the stuff that you do, they're like, he does all of those other things and pickleball?
I think it's related.
No, you do?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, well, we'll find out more about that coming.
But it's true, we've never met before.
No, which is super neat. But what Ron said was he is the kind of person you have on the podcast, which is a really cool story about really cool people doing really cool things. And as I would say, like, or in this case, badass people doing badass things. And you're a very humble guy, but when we start talking about the things that you do on the world stage compared to most people, when we start talking ultramarathoning, where you grew up, how you grew up, the adventure stuff that you do, there's so many things. Like I truly was researching you and doing some of my homework, and I was like, this guy reminds me of the guy from the Dos Equis commercials, like the most interesting man in the world. And there could be a book, there should be a book, there could be a movie based on just the storylines of your life. And
what's that commercial? I don't never heard of it.
Oh, it's the guy with, there's an older guy, and it's the Dos Equis beer.
Okay.
And they say he's the most interesting
man
in the world.
Oh, the Dos Equis beer, the Mexican beer.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So that's what made me think of you, just because, again, we're going to get there shortly because we're going to jump right into it. But like your storyline of where you grew up, your family, your profession, your athletics, and all these stories along the way are just super, super rad and really neat. And so I'm stoked that you're here and we can talk about it.
We'll see.
We'll see. Hey, that's fair. That is fair. But so a couple of the things that stand out, and I just mentioned it, but one of the big parts that we're going to get to is this ultramarathon experience that you've had over the last 20 some odd years. You know, I've had a lot of endurance, I'm doing air quotes here, endurance experiences. That's kind of what I'm into. But mine, I always say, like, I like to get up in the morning from my bed, go do something, and go back to bed. Like, I don't want to die. I don't want to be out there for multiple days. I don't want to sleep in the dirt. Like, I'm like a fair weather.
No, I don't want to die either.
Well, that's good. I appreciate that. And thank you for saying that. But you're doing stuff that is much more challenging physically, mentally, emotionally, logistically, et cetera.
Than you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's possible, yeah.
You know, for sure. Listen, I'm doing my stuff usually like within X number of hours of my home. Your flights are 12 and 14 hours away to go do stuff, and you're there for weeks.
I mean, before we dig into all of that,
sure.
I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very, I feel humbled by the fact that you invited me because you have amazing people. But from what you said earlier, I would say, you know, everybody has their own benchmark. Mm-hmm. Like my own benchmark, David Goggins is my benchmark. You know, it's not my benchmark, but it's like the top guys that I'm like, okay, well, I'll never be like him. So I can try as many crazy shit.
You're not going to do 7,600 pull-ups in a day?
Yeah, see, exactly. Or I'm never going to do Badwater because I know why, okay? But like, so sure, compared to somebody who's new to the sport of ultra running, yeah, I have done a few things.
Yeah, a few. Understatement.
But you know what I mean? It's all it's all relative.
For sure,
yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
But I also think that people that do stuff like what you do at that level and have been doing it for a long time, the benchmark of what's doable is very different than someone that's just started or just heard about it. So when you go like, for you, it's kind of like nonchalant about it. The rest of us look at people like, you go, hold on, you do what? And that's what people are going to say after we get into some of the weeds on some of the stuff you've done, which are it's just rad. I mean, I'm not putting you on such a pedestal that like,
no, please
but
don't.
It's really amazing
when
anybody does physical feats, challenging their mind and bodies like you do.
But you know, that's how I started myself, like looking up at people that today I'm like, yeah, okay, well, that guy was just running marathons, you know, but back then I was a young kid and I was just looking, I saw, you know, Kona, the famous image of that woman crawling to the finishing.
When you say Kona, you mean Ironman?
Yeah, the Ironman Kona. Yeah. Julie Moss. what was the other girl who passed the line crawling?
Yes,
she was a young student and she did that. And that image, I was like, oh my God, like the body collapses, but the mind keeps going. Like this is both crazy shit and it's also very, very inspirational. And I think it inspired a lot of people to do Ironman races, you know, just like the UTMB in Chamonix, that famous race now. The very first year in 2003, they had 80% DNF, okay, because the weather was just like crazy. But 80% DNF, what does it do to a race like that? It brings it to become a myth. It's like, oh wow, 20% of the people who start, who are like seasoned ultra runners, only 20% can finish it. Man, that's tempting. You want to be one of them, you know?
Well, and I mean, we're already we're going to go back in time, but no, this is great because like this just in the immediate past, just recently is the Cocodona 250 just happened.
Yeah.
And some people from town went to do it and had some challenge, like 250 miles, right? I mean, but we're going to talk.
I don't think I'll ever do that. See, for example.
Or Badwater. I mean, we have, you know, I think one of the interesting ones is that you were inspired by Kona, by those images over 20 years ago. And as you and I were talking, I've been doing a lot of endurance stuff for a long time, but I didn't even know about ultra. Like part of my problem is that I ran so much on asphalt. Had I known more about trail running and that stuff, I think my knee would probably survive.
Right. Well, yeah. Maybe.
Because trail, today, all my friends are running trail. They're doing trail, you know, marathons and getting into ultras. And I was like, oh, I missed this by 10 years. I wish I was able to do that right now.
Yeah, but running a marathon on road is a big thing. You know, today people are all about, let's do ultra running. It's easy. It's not easy. Running a marathon, most people on the planet can't do that. So running a marathon is already something that is a serious achievement. And the way that I started in the sport, I remember I was in Kauai visiting a friend, and his dad is a psychologist, like PhD psychologist. And I admire the guy because intellectually he was like high level for me, right? I was in college. And he was a runner, but his knees were so fucked up that he was telling me stories while we were running on that beautiful golf course in Kauai. And I was living in Paris at the time. So for me, Kauai, Hawaii was just like paradise, you know, heaven. And this guy was telling me how him and his doctor friends, because they were doctors and they had access to drugs, they were injecting their knees with painkillers so they could keep running marathons. And I was like, okay, this is nuts. But at the same time, this guy is brilliant. He's a PhD psychologist. And I connected those two words, like the words of reason, you know, and the word of madness. And to me, that was just like a great alchemy. And I was like, oh, wow. And that guy, I have to thank him. I mean, that guy inspired me to run marathon. And I was like, I can't do a marathon. It's like, yes, you can. And I was like, okay. And then I remember I went back to Paris and I ran my first marathon. And I was 18 or 19 or something like that. But that's the crazy story that brought me to the sport.
Well, and I think you may have just nailed the title of this. It's the alchemy of brilliance and madness.
Yeah, maybe.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think that is kind of, if you can master that, and you've already brought up Goggins. I'm a huge Goggins fan, and we were talking earlier about the 4x4x48, which we've both done. See, I love stuff like that. But I look at what you do as far as the 100 milers that you do and the 100Ks and the multi-days, and I'm like, I could never do that.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah, but man,
if your knees were fine, you could.
Oh. Hold on. Can that guy get me some drugs for my knee? I'm ready to start injecting them. Nothing else is working.
Yeah. So unfortunately, and I'm not in touch with that guy anymore because he's the father of my friend, whose wife I married.
Oh, here's the story.
Okay,
Okay, hold on. I had heard this quote. Can you say that quote again?
What quote?
The quote is, "I married the wife of my best friend."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's something that happened in the movies. You think it's not going to happen to you. If someone tells you, you'd be like, dude, I would never do that to anybody. And then it happened. And just life gets into it, and it gets messy, and it gets, but I mean, I don't regret it. I'm sorry for the way that it happened, of course. But it's life, and life gets messy. But the good thing about it is that it teaches you stuff. And all of those endurance races taught me stuff about myself and about others and about maybe mistakes that you don't want to repeat because you've been there and you've learned from it. So yeah, it's an adventure.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, I think you just also hit on something super. If you've done, whether it be marathons, ultras, any kind of long distance stuff, there's all kinds of things that happen. You have a lot of time in your mind, right?
Yeah.
And you can find flow state,
Yeah.
which is very peaceful and time ticks away. You can also find lots of creative space where kind of the magic happens. And I always say, like, there's times I got to put the music on, because if I'm music off by myself for too long in those environments, like, you can go dark, things can get weird. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, and you can go through all of it over a multi-day event, I would imagine, or once you get really tired, it's very different. But I think anybody that's done ultra stuff, from a mindset perspective, you start to really understand that lots of processing happens while you're out there. And if you're feeling really good, it's one. And if you're in the pain cave, it's different. And
Yeah.
it evolves throughout an event.
But I think that's what I'm attracted to. It's like it's an adventure. And by definition, what is an adventure? Is something you have no idea how it's going to end, you know? And I think that is what attracts people to long distances. Because today, running a marathon is a feat. You know, it's something, but you have training plans, you have coaches. Like, most people can run a marathon, okay? An ultra, or like Cocodona, 250, or like the Marathon De Sables, you know, it's 155 miles over 6 days, but you have to be self-sufficient and carry all your food and everything you think you're going to need for a week. That's a different level. Okay, so you start the race, and you don't know what's going to happen for a week, you know? And so I'm afraid. I feel the fear, but at the same time, it's exciting. And at the same time, I'm going to face my demons, because I'm going to be put in a situation where, my daily life doesn't put me in it. You know, we're very protected. It's very random to say that, but it's true, right? And those experiences, 100 miles, 100 Ks in the mountain, Marathon De Sables, Ironman triathlon, I think that's what people like it. It's because it's a challenge that you don't get on your daily basis. Like, everybody can run 10K.
Yeah.
You know, that's not really an adventure. You know, it's going to end. It's just going to take you an hour, okay, more or less. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, my wife and I have this conversation about that book, The Culture Crisis.
Okay.
The Comfort Crisis. And it just talks a lot about,
exactly.
We live at 70 degrees in our homes. We have, refrigerators and showers and all that stuff. But I'm guessing these events, the 7-day, pronounce it correctly for me.
Marathon De Sables.
And that is in the Sahara Desert.
It's in Morocco.
And it's Morocco.
It's basically a marathon a day, more or less, for 7 days, 6 stages. And the only thing that they give you is water, right? So you have like 8 stations every 10K, every 6 miles, they just give you water. But then everything else you think you need for the week, whether it's a Band-Aid, a toothbrush, a pair of socks, an extra pair of socks, you have to carry it. So it's also very strategic, because the weight can get, it's just, I love that race.
Yeah. How many times have you done it?
10 times.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And all right, now we know who's in the room. It took us a while to get to that, but that is why we're here, because anybody that can do it and loves to do it. I think that not only the accomplishment, but the amount of preparation and the mental strength you have to have, and the physical preparation you have to have, and the ability to persevere through. I just can't fathom my small experiences of doing things through the night and sleep deprivation type stuff.
Oh God.
But to do it 7 days, self-contained, taking all your food.
Well, you sleep, huh? You have a tent and you sleep, right?
Yeah.
It's very, it's just a dusty carpet on the Sahara floor. But sleep deprivation is an interesting thing that you meet. I've encountered it on 100 miles. That's also quite an experience.
Yeah.
Like, you see, I saw things like the UTMB. So UTMB, it's 100 miles, it's a little bit more now, around the Mont Blanc mountain, which is the highest peak in Europe. And it starts in Chamonix, France, goes to Courmayeur, Italy, Champix, Switzerland, back to France. So you go to 3 countries. It's just a beautiful course, right? So I've finished it 4 times. Every single times I've seen things that are unreal.
Like hallucinations?
Yeah, like proper hallucinations. I've never done any drugs in my life, but man, I've seen stuff that were, but today it's a good memory. It's a great memory. And it's funny enough, I've met people who have told those stories. They were like, what? That doesn't seem appealing or glamorous. Or I'm like, what do you mean? Yes, it's super fun. But yeah, like I've seen a big black gorilla with red eye on a rock. It was just a rock. Like the trail was divided, there was a rock in the middle. And on that rock, I was seeing this big black gorilla, like King Kong, okay, with red eyes. and he was just looking at me like mean. He was going to kill me or something. And I passed him, and I felt my chin. You know, when you're afraid, when you have like a intense fear thing, you have your hair on your back. Like I felt it, like physically I felt it, that I came very close to being attacked by that big gorilla that didn't exist. Wow. But I was doing this, and I was like, no, he's here. But I knew he wasn't real, but at the same time, I was seeing him like I'm seeing you.
And this was over?
That was the second night.
Second night.
Yeah.
How much sleep at that?
That was 0 sleep.
0 sleep.
So my best time at UTMB is 42 hours and something like that. 0 sleep.
And this is 100 miles with incredible amounts of elevation.
Yeah, so
right?
the altitude plays a part in it, you know, and then you're just fucking exhausted. But when you finish something like that, you have a sense of not just that you've achieved something that very few people do, but, you know, it's like this, it's like Titanic. Like, I'm the king of the world because I've done something that really was hard. Like, really was hard. For me, it was hard, okay? Yeah. But I've done it. And so now I can do anything. Now bring it in.
Is that what you believe?
Yeah.
Based on your experiences,
yeah.
persevering through all of
But
this.
that's also, it could turn into a problem, which is something that I've emailed you about. Like, what's your limit then? You know?
Do you know what your limit is?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
What is it?
Death.
Oh.
So
That's all?
Well, I mean, that's all. Death, that's it. There's nothing after that, right? So, yeah, that's the ultimate limit.
Have you gotten close to that limit before?
No.
Good.
Mm-mm. Well, no, not voluntarily, but I mean, I'm so impressed by people who go to war zones. I mean, have you been to a war zone?
No.
Okay, so it's not like in the movies. It's freaking scary. Okay, so I was fortunate enough as a journalist to go to Iraq and to go to Afghanistan. I'm getting emotional just talking about it. That's real fear. It's death around the corner, and it can hit you at any moment. You're never safe. And to go on a tour of duty over there, I mean, I have huge respect for those guys. Like, it's more than that. It's like, I don't think I could do it, to be honest. I think I'm too much of a coward to do that. It's insane. So one of my best and worst memory in marathons, I ran a marathon in Iraq. It was the Honolulu Marathon in Iraq. So
Hold on, explain that.
Yeah, it was a unit from Honolulu who did their tour of duty in Iraq. And one of the lieutenant was a runner. And he was like, you know what, we have a base that's big enough. And that base where they had all the tanks from Saddam that they had destroyed, it was like a tank cemetery. And it was big enough that we only had to loop it twice to do 26 miles, right? It was just a huge base. And the guy was like, well, we have family, we have friends, we have our wives, our husbands who are in Honolulu. So we're going to do a marathon the same day that the Honolulu Marathon happens, with the time difference, and they're going to run it over there, and we're going to run it here. So I ran the Honolulu Marathon in Iraq, thanks to those guys. And so I traveled to Iraq just for that. The green zone.
You went there just for it?
I went there just for that. I did a story. We did like a 10-page story in L'Équipe, which is French sports magazine, like the equivalent of Sport Illustrated at the time. So it's a big newspaper. But I remember being over Baghdad in the Black Hawk with the door gunner, finger on the trigger, and I was like, holy shit, what have I done? Mm-hmm. You know, and I that's fear for me. That's real fear. So then Marathon De Sables, 100 miles in the mountains, it's like a big gorilla that I know doesn't exist. It's like, come on, you know? Yeah.
Did anybody remember what I said at the beginning? Most interesting man in the world. Super incredible stuff.
Wow.
And I'm glad we're riffing right now. Let me do this. We're going to get back into this because there's more to this part of the story, both on the travel, and it's big parts of your life, the travel, the running, and the writing, and doing it all together. But let's go back and connect some of the dots, because clearly you didn't grow up here, and here you are in the U.S., but let's go all the way back. Yeah. You've shared some stories about your upbringing that I think influence some of your life, between your parents and where you lived and what you were into and what they did. So can you just tell the story where you grew up, what it was like, and your folks and your family? Yeah, so I grew up in Paris. I'm French. And my family has always been related to the military. My grandfather was a POW from the German, so we're not Jewish, so he wasn't
killed, but he was taken to Germany to work in the camps.
Why? Why was he taken?
Well, because the French army was defeated.
Oh, he was in the army at the time.
He was in the army,
Okay, got
right?
it.
So the French army was defeated, captured, sent to Germany to work for the Germans, right? So after the war, so it's a big part. And I loved my grandparents, so I was very close to them. So that's the first story, right? Then my dad had a brother who fought in Indochina. So before you guys went in and called it Vietnam, we called it Indochina, and it was a French colony. And when those people legitimately wanted their independence, we fought them, right? And he was in the Air Force, and his plane was shot down over Indochina, missing in action. That drove my grandmother from my father's side literally crazy, because for the rest of her life, she didn't know. She couldn't mourn him because she didn't know if he was dead.
Right.
And for her entire life, she waited for him to knock on the door. And he never did, because he probably died in the crash, whatever, you know. So that was also something. And then my dad was an arm dealer. Is that
Hold
you
on,
say?
your grandfather died?
No, not my grandfather, my uncle.
Oh, your uncle. Okay.
My father, brother, missing in action in Indochina.
Okay, gotcha.
Right?
During Nam.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, during Indochina.
Yes.
And then my father, grew up with my father, was traveling a lot, and he had, at the time when I was a kid, I thought very glamorous job. He was selling big guns, weapons, officially for France, you know, just like America does it, Germany does it.
Did he work for the country, or was he
No,
like
he
an
worked-
independent arms dealer?
No, he worked for a private company that's also kind of related to the state, but yeah, like in all perfectly legal, send like French missiles, French helicopters, French tanks. So I grew up like that, like loving somehow that kind of military, you know, atmosphere. I wanted to be in the military when I was a kid, but I sucked in high school. So I couldn't I wanted to go to our West Point, but I was just a bad student in high school. So
Why? Why do you think? Because
I don't know.
You've gone on to do quite a bit with education, but
yeah, after in college, because I think I just matured and maybe studied what I wanted to study, but I don't know. I'm not sure. Like my parents put me in my wife, she calls it the naughty school, like in a very private school for stupid kids or kids who don't do well, you know, where the discipline is a little bit different. And so
did you do better there?
yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I finished high school.
That's good to know.
And then I went on to go to college.
Yeah,
But so
yes,
anyway,
you did. Again, I don't want to understate.
Yeah.
Like, you've done quite a bit education-wise since then as well, like significant. So,
yeah.
got it.
Yeah. So that's how I grew up, right? So
What about mom's role?
Yeah, my mom, she was a public employee. She was a PE teacher, physical education teacher in high school. And at the same time, she always had a second job. She was giving private fitness / gymnastics / Pilates classes to our community. And so, yeah, it's something I mentioned. Both of my parents, they loved their job. So I was very fortunate because, and I will always remember that one of my best friends at the time, his father was working in banking or something, and he was telling me, yeah, you know, my father, when he comes back, he talks about retirement and he doesn't like his work. And that struck me because I don't know what my father does today. My father kind of disappeared, but I'm sure he's still involved as a consultant, you know, with that word. And my mom, she's 84 and she broke her hip 4 months ago, but she's back at giving Pilates classes and gymnastics and yeah.
So let me ask you this. So you've got a dad with military, history.
He was never in the military.
No, but
right?
he was in that world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was always attractive to you, and he loved it. And you have this mom that's a PE teacher and
Yeah.
Pilates and all this, and a fitness.
Yeah. Well, my dad was also a rugby player in college.
So do you think you said how you always wanted to be in the military, probably because dad's job looked really glamorous, and mom was a fitness person, and dad was obviously fit playing sport. How much of who you are today do you think is a reflection on them?
Oh, a lot, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, all the sport that I do, I grew up, I had no choice. Like, you have to do a sport or two.
Or
you know?
8.
Or 8, yeah, but I had to do a sport. But what's interesting is I grew up playing soccer and tennis. I even played tennis a little bit in college. So those are very regulated sports, you know? Like, you literally have lines that you can't cross, or you can't, if you put the ball right, it's offside or it's a foul or whatever. Very regulated, right? And then one day I started embracing skateboarding, and that was a revelation. It's like, oh, total freedom. I can skate wherever I want.
A little bit of anarchy thrown in, right?
Well, it's just freedom,
Yep.
right? And then I embraced surfing. I was like, huh. And then I embraced snowboarding. I was like, huh. I even won a competition of snowboarding in college.
So you got really into snowboarding.
I got really into. I was fortunate enough that my parents were taking me skiing. I was very privileged. But skateboarding, snowboarding, and then that guy.
And all this while you're living in Paris.
In Paris, yes, and traveling to the Alps.
Sure.
We have amazing mountains.
And that was early on in the snowboarding days too.
Yeah, dude. I started skiing, and then I saw the first snowboard. The very first few snowboards, I saw them, emerge, and and the whole video scene in VHS. I was looking at Greg Kelly, those guys. So I grew up like that, and then running, and then I found a connection, which I'm not the only one to admit it. There's a strong connection between running, like climbing, snowboarding, skateboarding. Those are very free sports. Like you don't need anybody. Yep. You don't need any type of gear, or at least it's minimalistic, and you can say fuck off to the rest of the world and go whenever you want, with whoever you want, for how long as you want. Nobody's gonna tell you the line, offside, or red card. No, So I still play tennis and I play pickleball. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I like the competition.
Yeah.
But I think that snowboarding, skateboarding, and running. That's why I embraced it, because it has that spirit of, like what's at the end of the street, what's at the end of the line.
It's really interesting. There's a guy here, I'm forgetting his name, but he lives in Irvine, and Path Projects. It's a big run attire guy. He's a big marathon runner guy, but he comes out of a super competitive skateboard background.
Okay.
And so that's interesting. I'd never heard of it, kind of referred to as that kind of like the freedom side of sport.
Yeah.
But it makes a lot of sense. Like I played stick and ball and water polo. Like I played team sports growing up, and once I found surfing, I've never been a team sport guy since. It's always been the stuff that I can do on my own time, as competitively or as not competitive as I'd like.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I had never thought of it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you're in Paris at the time.
Yeah.
You're going to school.
Oh, and then we moved to Mexico.
Talk about that.
I was 8 years old, and my dad, his company decided that he was going to sell, weapons to Mexico. So we moved to Mexico. I was 8 years old, and we stayed in Mexico almost 3 years, and that rocked my life.
How come?
Well, because I was a little blonde, white, privileged little Parisian, speaking only French, of course. And 8 years old, I was thrown into the Mexican, scene. Mexico is more vibrant. Mexico at the time was more dangerous. It was just very, very different. And but that was the best gift that they, without knowing it, ever gave me, because I adapted. I learned the language pretty quickly, because in school, even though I was in a French school, most of the kids were upper class Mexican kids who wanted to speak French, but at the breaks, they were back into speaking Spanish. So if I wanted to make friends, I had to learn Spanish. So I learned Spanish pretty quickly. So I adapted, and I think, without really knowing it, it just opened me to the rest of the world. And then
How many languages do you speak?
So 3 friendly and a little bit of Italian, because I lived in Italy for 4 years.
So you've got Spanish, French, and English fluent, and then Italian.
Well, my Spanish is a little rusted, but it would get back pretty. But English, French, and Italian.
It's a lot more than most of us have over here in California.
It's a lot more than everybody.
You told an interesting story to me about when you were young in Mexico. Like you called it a near-death experience.
Oh, yeah.
In your mind, it was a near-death,
yeah,
but it had some
as a kid.
It had some impacts. Can you tell that story? Because I think that's telling.
Yeah. So at the very beginning, my parents were working on the house. The house was not ready, so we were living in a hotel, fancy hotel, paid by my dad's company. And then one day, my parents, I don't know why they did that. They said, "All right, we're going to go buy furniture. So you stay in the room. We'll be back in like 2 hours or something, And then. Tropical rain in Mexico, it's not like in Europe. The rain is just much, much heavier, right? And so for whatever reason, I got scared because it started raining super, super heavily. And the 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, because we were new to the country and my parents had not anticipated about traffic and about the mess of in the street, driving wise. And so for whatever reason, I got out of the room. And hotel rooms, doors, they close on themselves. And then I was like, oh shit, I'm in a foreign country. I don't speak a word of Spanish. It's raining cats and dogs. It's crazy. And it's been 4 hours. And yeah, in my little head, I thought I had lost my parents. I thought my parents were never coming back, and it was nuts. And I found a maid from the hotel, and with hand languages, she understood, so she opened the door for me. And as a dumbass, like an hour later, I did it again. So when my parents came back, they found me in the corridor of the hotel. And I think what was decisive is that they underplayed it. They're like, no big deal, you'll be good, And so again, I'm just saying that I don't know what happened in my head, but I think I went from my parents are dead and I'm gonna die because I'm in freaking Mexico. I don't speak the language. I don't even know where I am. Nobody's ever gonna find me. To we're fine again, And so I think in ultra running, it's like you can go to phases when you're down, you're fainting, you're thirsty, you're hurting, but then
a minute later.
So it's usually not a minute later, but like an hour later, 2 hours later, the sun's gonna come up again. So I think that's how I approach it. But it's not even how I approach it. It's just that's what happens in my brain, I guess.
Interesting. And you can kind of tie it back to that. You think like a first experience.
But for some reason, I connect the dots there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Super cool. And so you were there 3 years, and then you went back.
I was there 3 years, then back to France.
Back to France.
Then college.
So let's talk college. Where'd you end up going? Clearly, as you said, you weren't a great student. You couldn't get into the military school you wanted to, but you went to.
I was as bad as I repeated a class. Okay. Yeah.
Gotcha.
When I was 17, I repeated a class.
But yet you went on to
16. Yeah. Then I finished high school. So then I went to university and I went to film school.
Film
school. Yeah. And I remember the first film class that I had was Cuban cinema in Spanish. Like the teacher was from Cuba and she was teaching the class in Spanish. So there's not many students in the class, right? But since I was fluent in Spanish, so I got an A. And I was like, holy shit, college is awesome.
Wow.
So then I went to film school. I got a master's in film school. Then I was working already for television. And then...
what were you doing?
I did a little bit of everything. I was an editor. I was a writer. I was a young executive. I was basically a script doctor on TV series. And then I was morally harassed by my boss. And that was an awful experience. And so I had to leave. Like the HR people told me, we know, but she's making money for us, so we're gonna give you money so you don't sue us and you go away.
Wow.
So I did that. And then that's a story I didn't tell you, but then the first Iraq war started, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be a journalist, I'm gonna go to a war zone. So I went to journalism school, and I learned how to use a video camera. And then I called whoever I knew in the media. I was like, hey, I wanna go to Iraq. And the guy laughed at my face. He's like, kid, you're a young journalist. You've never really worked as a journalist. Not only are you gonna get killed, but you're gonna get the whole team kicked out of Iraq. And so work a little and come back to see us in a few months. And then at the time I was a triathlete, so I started working for a triathlon magazine. And then Men's Health, hired me. And then from there, I just went, and I've been a sports journalist for the rest of my life.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Wow. When did you start let's not go to triathlon yet. That's not your only master's degree.
No, then I went back to college, yeah, because Men's Health somehow was not doing that great. It was Axel Springer, the German publisher. It wasn't doing that great. It was at the very beginning of print collapsing.
Gotcha.
So they fired everybody, and I could sense it was not going great. So I went back to college and I was interested in sports. So I got a sports marketing master, and then they fired everybody. I went back to being a freelance journalist. Then Runner's World came in, they hired us. And then same thing, 5 years later, I felt like Runner's World was not doing that great. So I went back and got another executive master in journalism, digital management. And that's when, after that, I moved to India.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've got a master's in film, sports marketing, and digital media?
Yeah, digital management media, yeah.
Management.
Yeah.
That's all. What universities did you go to and where?
So I went to La Sorbonne for the film. Paris Orsay, which is more of a science-based university. That's where I got my sports marketing. And then Sciences Po Paris.
All at this whole time you were living in Paris?
It's the whole time, yeah.
Gotcha.
But I was already traveling a lot. Like
I would
I've done my first surf trip in Indonesia, triathlons all over the place, and yeah. But the thing about like my friends, they're all like, "Oh man, you've done so many races," and I'm like, "Yeah, but I've never paid for anything. That was part of my job. Like I was never a pro athlete, but tourism boards or races were inviting me most of the time, paying everything, including the plane ticket, for me to go
in exchange for a
race."
And write an article.
And yeah, so that's what I did for the past 20 years. Yeah.
Oh.
So I'm very fortunate. You know, I've done a lot of races in a lot of countries, but if I had to pay for that, I would definitely not have done that. You know.
Wow.
Yeah. Like the 10 Marathon De Sables, I've never paid for it. It's a $5,000 entry ticket. You know.
And you probably have to qualify or get
No,
invited.
You don't.
You
No,
don't
you
for
don't.
those?
No.
Got it.
No.
Wow, I didn't realize. I hadn't figured that part out.
Yeah.
But going back, so just real quick, you've mentioned earlier surf, snowboard, skate, all that stuff, and you just mentioned you've done some surf trips, Indonesia, et cetera.
Yeah.
You shared with me 2 experiences, again, back to like
Oh, surfing?
2 different surfing. Surf, and one was like surf/golf. So
It was more golf, yeah.
Now, but are most of these experiences, like you said about all the events, are they all related to getting invitations to go write articles?
Yeah.
So you had an opportunity to go surf Chopu, end of the road.
So I had an
Tahiti.
opportunity to go to Tahiti and do different stories, right? Was actually about the Vaha.
The outrigger.
Yeah. And another one was about surfing. And so obviously surfing in Tahiti, Tiopo.
Yeah.
You know, so you go to Tiopo. And I remember first day I'm paddling out thinking, I'm just going to sit in the channel. I was scared shitless even in the channel.
One of the heaviest waves.
No,
in
but
the world.
the wave was not even big.
No.
Like otherwise I would have stayed in the on the beach. Like when they do the competition, that's like I'm not putting one foot in the water.
It's
okay,
been,
but I was
been
just
like that lately. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I know. And so there was a Tahitian on the jet ski. It's like, hey, you want to come to the lineup? I was like, no, dude, I'm just going to stay here and watch. Okay, and I was seeing those guys getting barreled and just not huge waves, right? But the thing is, the reef is just right there, and it's like super hollow and like violent almost, okay, at least for me, because I'm not a great surfer. And then the next day, I had an interview with Raimana van Basteler, who's like a
Raimana
legend,
is one
right?
of absolute legend.
Yeah, and Raimana, the way that he started his career being well known, he was Kelly Slater caddy. So he was in the water with different boards, and he was just waiting for Kelly to tell him which board. And Raimana, I remember meeting him at a harbor, and he's on a jet ski, and he's like, dude, we just came back from Tiopo. Do you want to go surf? And I was like, sure, yeah. He said, hey, come on, no worries. So I go on a jet ski, and he had a bunch of boards. And he said, all right, well, I'm going to see the waves are not too big. I'm just going to launch you into the wave. So what you do, you sit on the side of the jet ski, you get your board, and I'm going to take on the wave with my jet ski, and then you just jump and you just surf it. I'm like, okay. And the wave was not that big. It was like maybe I don't know, like I would say like a 6 foot.
But you've got the mayor and one of the world-class watermen and one of the world-class jet ski operators going, hey, he's going. It doesn't happen that way for most humans, right?
I know, but then I couldn't say no, right?
Sure.
I was like, well, I got to trust this guy. He's not going to kill me, okay? So he has never seen me surfing. And I mean, thank God, I don't believe in God, but I was able to jump on the wave, jump on the board, and just surf the left. And it was just the most memorable ride of my life. I mean, Tiopo is such a beautiful wave, and it's just crystal clear. And you're like, oh, how deep is this thing? And it's not deep at all. And I just followed the wave. It was just like, wow. And then he said, do you want to go again? I was like, sure. So I just surfed Tiopo twice.
Incredible.
Thanks to him. Like,
doing step-offs with Raimana at Chopu. That's pretty incredible.
But because I was there as a journalist doing a story on Tahiti.
Oh.
Yeah.
This is the glue that I wasn't aware of how that all worked. There's another story. You've just mentioned Kelly Slater. Can you tell your Kelly Slater story?
Well, I played golf with Kelly Slater. Yeah. So I was, one day, I think I was working for Men's Health at the time, and I received a call from Quicksilver. And they say, hey, the competition is happening in the southwest of France, in Hossegor, and Kelly's obviously there. And do you want to go interview Kelly? I'm like, sure, yeah. So I go there, and he said, well, today the waves are shitty, so Kelly's playing golf. Do you want to go? I'm like, sure. So I went with Kelly Slater on his, he was driving the little cart, and we were having a chat, and then John Chimuka was there. John Chimuka passed away, yeah. and another guy. And so I was just interviewing Kelly, you know, and they were going from one hole to another. And then Kelly was like, dude, let's play, like hit the ball, you know. So I can say that I very humbly.
Were you in the cart with him?
Yeah. He was driving the car and I was just like chatting with him and talking to him. And the thing that I remember is that John Chimuka told me, you know what's annoying with Kelly Slater? Is that everything he does it to perfection, and he's good at golfing. And it's breaking our balls because, you know, he's already that god level in surfing. But then in golfing, he's better than every one of us. I was like, yeah, that guy is someone. And I mean, I have a lot of respect for Kelly Slater because after his pro career, he's done some amazing things too. So he's one of the guy that I respect the most in the world of sport.
Well, that's a good one to look up to. I mean, really incredible. What a fun opportunity on both of those examples. It's amazing what your career. All careers have ups and downs, but it sounds like some of the benefits. I mean, you went to Iraq. And you ran a marathon.
That was a choice, though, right?
Yeah, it's taking you a lot of different ways. Some super fun and easy, some super heavy and sketchy, and everything in between.
Afghanistan was also sketchy.
I can only imagine.
So the thing that with Afghanistan, I went there with ISF. So ISF is all the
International Security Forces?
Dude, I don't even know.
Something like that.
Like, except the Americans, it's a conglomerate of all the nations that fought the Taliban in Iraq, right? And I had no idea there's so many nations, from New Zealanders to Portugal, Spain, France, Turkey, anyway. So, and we did a book about, the idea was the sports that those soldiers were doing after the day of work, which is war.
While they're there in action.
So while they're there, obviously, they're like everybody. They need to, you know, once they go back to the base after the day operation, what do? They're kids, you know, they're still high on energy. They're not going to go to bed, right? So we did a book about what every country, sports-wise, was doing. Wow. Like Americans were golfing, like on top of the building, they're just like throwing the ball away. Turks were wrestling, you know, and kicking everybody's ass. The French, the Italians, and the Spaniards was playing soccer, obviously. And we were there, there was a Rugby World Cup. And in the camp that we were, there was a special force from New Zealand. And we could not approach those guys, right? They don't want to talk to you. They don't want you to even hear their voice. But they were...
Why? I don't understand why.
Well, because they're special operators, and they want to remain, you know, like...
Gotcha.
You don't need to know who they are, right? And so, but those guys they had a rugby, and they were running around the base, passing the rugby. Like New Zealand, you know, it's like, come on, the Kiwis, right? Those guys play rugby. But the funny thing is, France was playing New Zealand in the final of the World Cup. That year, that day, I was in the base, and I was with a helicopter battalion watching the World Cup, where, in another building, we could hear the New Zealand, you know, watching their, you know, supporting the team, but we beat them.
All Blacks.
But we beat them. France beat them that year.
Did you stay away from the New Zealand guys that?
Fuck yeah.
You know, probably wise. They'll do the haka on you, right?
So that's also kind of an experience. In Afghanistan, I don't think France has beaten the Kiwis a lot in rugby, right? But I was there with like French commandos, you know, that's quite an experience.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, I want to say that with... I'm not trying to show off, okay? Like, I'm very happy that I had all those experiences, but they just also came to me, and I think maybe I know how to seize opportunities, but...
I don't think you're showing off.
Yeah,
it's just, listen, you have 3 master's degrees and a career that allowed you to go do what you wanted to do, and it sounds like all the way back to your childhood, you were an international, multi-language, like, and an athlete. You were like set up, you were like, you've done all the work to end up where you wanted to go, doing what you wanted to do.
I mean, I've been very fortunate.
But I think sometimes you also make a lot of your own fortunes. Like you made decisions and were good at certain things that allowed you to, again, if you weren't good at journalism, you probably wouldn't have gotten any of those opportunities. So thankfully.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to bounce back because you had talked about the 3 degrees that you have, but you've also shared with me you're thinking about going back for a 4th. How come?
Yeah, so I've always been interested in psychology. And actually, after high school, I wanted to study psychology. And my mom was like, no. People who study psychology is because they're mental.
Crazy.
Yeah, and they want to know about themselves. So you're not crazy, you're going to go to law school. So I went to law school, actually.
Oh, you did?
Oh, I did 1 year, yeah. And then I was like, Mom, that's not for me. I want to go to film school. I say, okay, go to film school. But yeah, so I've done I mean, this is ingrained in me. I don't even know why, but I'm so into this. Like at a very young age, I started reading Freud. So the funny thing is, my mom, she was anti.
In America, we would say Freud.
Okay, Sigmund Freud. She didn't want to hear anything about psychology, but her two best friends were psychologists. They were gay women psychologists, and they were giving me books, without my mom knowing.
That's
right?
funny.
And so when I was in Paris, I've done quite a bit of psychoanalysis, quite a bit because I did it for 8 years, 3-4 times a week for 8 years.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, yeah.
How come?
Because I loved it, because it was fun, because it was also hard. It was also a challenge.
Did you have what started you? I know we're going down a different path, but what started you on the psychoanalysis?
What my passion for psychology.
You were interested in it.
I was interested in it, and I was like, well, I didn't go to college for that. I have a job. I'm doing something else. So let's go do a psychoanalysis. Again, the Freud, maybe influence somewhere. And so, I was fortunate enough that the psychoanalyst that I was with, he was also a psychiatrist, was a great guy, and it was great, alchemy. And so I stayed with him for 8 years, seeing him 3 times or 4 times a week. But it wasn't easy, and I think that's what I liked about it. It was both. I cried sometimes. Sometimes I would just remain silent for 40 minutes. It was a 45-minute session, and he was just saying anything. He was like, all right, if he doesn't want to talk, I'm not going to talk. It was just an experience,
Do you think your life would be different had you not done all of that?
Oh, yeah.
So you got the benefits of that process?
I think so. Yeah, for sure. I mean,
think how fucked up you'd be if you hadn't done it.
No, but if you ask me what it brought me knowledge of who I am, and it definitely helped me feel more like Freud at me, Yeah, go ahead, I'm not afraid.
You think those tools have helped you when it's, 2 a.m. and you're running and you're 3 days into a 7-day event and you have a real clear understanding of yourself, or?
No. I don't know. I don't have, no. But yeah, I think everything that we've started talking about plays a role in when I'm involved in an ultra. And yeah, the latest ultra that I've done is Hong Kong 100. It's 100K.
That was just here in 2025.
That was in January. Yeah, I really like that event. It's very Hong Kong.
You wrote an article about that one too.
Yeah,
is that correct?
Yeah. Have you ever been to Hong Kong?
Yeah.
Hong Kong is a fascinating city. I mean, it's just like
it's a
super cramped, and it's like Manhattan
but beautiful out on the water, beautiful in the hills.
Yeah, but then it's surrounded by mountains. It's surrounded by amazing nature, and so they have this trail race around it. It's 100K, and
I think you said that's one of the historic ultras in Asia.
Yeah. It's absolutely, and it's ultra running now is just growing everywhere.
Yeah.
The problem is some races are not that great in terms of safety, just to say the least. But this race is very, very well managed. But we shouldn't talk about it because I don't want people to.
Well, you know what? I read your article about it.
Go there you
even said that you're like, I'm writing an article
it's
about
like
it, but I kind of don't want people to. I don't
Yeah.
want to blow this thing up too big.
No, don't go. Yeah.
Okay, I won't go. Sounds really amazing.
No, you and I can go, but I don't want other people to go.
Got it.
Yeah.
But I think that's everything. That's why they're adding more and more races, because they're getting more and more impacted, right?
Yeah, but the problem is those races are, I think, are hard to set up. You need.
It's a lot of support.
Well, yeah. I remember when the UTMB started in Chamonix. I think the first year when they had 80% of DNF, it's because they had crazy storms, and maybe it was that year or the year after. So we have the army there that acts as a safety people in the mountains. They're called gendarmerie, okay? But they're like police officers, but they are from the army, okay? And they are the one who rescue people with the helicopters, right? Except when the weather is bad, the helicopters can't take off, obviously. And on one of those years, a guy broke his leg during the UTMB, and he couldn't get evacuated with the chopper, so they had to trek, go get him. And I was there, I just saw it. So what's hard with those ultra races is the safety element, because really you go very far, you're exhausted, Like the fact that I saw this gorilla. I saw other stuff, by the way. If you want to talk about it, I can tell you what I saw.
That wasn't your only time hallucinating on a run?
Yeah. It's because you go deep, you go pretty deep. You're tired, you're exhausted, so it's at the mountain. It could be like a dangerous terrain.
Sure.
Like the Hong Kong race. It's only 100K compared to 100-mile, but it's very tricky because it's a lot of stairs, and those stairs are very old and very uneven. So not only it's physically difficult, but mentally you have to just be super, super focused, and it's exhausting.
That's the hard part, right?
Yeah.
Staying super on it.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I find anybody that does these endurance events, especially when you've been doing them for as long as you have, and you've done them all over the world, you've talked about it bits and pieces, but let me ask you the question. Why? Why for you? Why ultra endurance races?
So I think those races are so long and they require such complicated logistics that when you're fortunate enough to be able to travel and go on the other side of the world, it's a trip, right? It's like a travel, right? So that allows me to go see different countries, meet different people, different cultures. So I enjoy that, right? I guess it's coming from my background, living in Mexico, India, and Italy, and everything. But then, why do I keep doing it?
Yeah.
Because of the pain, man. Because of the pain.
Explain that. What do you mean? Let's talk psychoanalysis. I love the pain is what basically I keep going back.
No, I don't
for
love the pain.
Well, but you clearly go back for more. Why?
Because I can beat it.
Let's go. Let's talk about that. What's beating pain? Is that
my
persevering
pain
through it?
It's pushing through it. It's finishing, even though, because very quickly in long distances like that, your body wants to stop, okay? Because it hurts, So then I go back to it, to my roots. It's the Ironman video of that woman crossing the finish line crawling. What is this? It's her body has shut down, okay? But her mind is saying, not today. Not today, bitch. Today, I'm going to continue. I'm going to go on, no matter what, And that's what I enjoy. Because once you've done that, on endurance, okay, it's just very agreeable to be. I don't know. It's pleasure. It's pleasurable, So I don't like pain for pain. I'm not, going to cut myself just for the sake of it. But I like, and again, it's not crazy pain. I'm not taking a bullet, okay? But it's just I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I may have crazy blisters, at the MDS, the Marathon De Sables in the Sahara, I've seen feet I've never seen before, blisters, insane blisters, okay? It's just super painful. Everybody has them. It's very painful. It's funny how blisters, it's just a tiny little thing, but it can just ruin it for you, right?
Well, you talked earlier about Goggins.
Yeah.
David Goggins has gotten very popular over the last handful of years, 10 years, 5 years.
Yeah.
Living with the seal.
But that guy's done incredible stuff.
Yes, but more so about the psychology of it. He talks about, and again, it's not new, but he's been very prolific, and it stuck with a lot of people like me, where he talks about, when you think you're done, you're only at 20%. Yeah. You've got 80% left, and that's kind of what I'm hearing from you right here, right?
At my own level, yes, I've experienced it. Yes, of course. And I think if you would ask me, okay, what's the key? How do you do it? I think it's how much you want it. I've DNF'd twice in my life. One in an Ironman, one in the UTMB. And why? Because I didn't want them enough on that year. And I hadn't trained enough, and I was in pain. And I was like, what? Not today. I don't feel like doing it today. I regret it, okay, but I've learned my lessons. Now I'm not registering for an event like that when I'm not trained enough, because I've been humbled,
What do you get? Is it the accomplishment of knowing that you did everything, or you powered through something super hard? What do you, when you're done, or you look back on all the things that you've done, or even just the one in January, what do you get from it, and why do you go, I'm going to keep going, I want to do more?
It's a very personal question.
Oh.
I get a sense of pride. It gets me high in a way, and I think it has to do with all the failures that I've had to endure when I was a kid in high school. That was really hard on me and on my parents. And so today I'm doing those things that the majority of the people don't do because maybe they don't know about it, but they could. And I'm doing that, and I'm like, yeah, every time it gets me a kick, like it's just like I'm high on something. I'm high on success, on that thing, And yeah, and you asked me earlier, about college, and yeah, I kind of want to go back to get an MA in psychology because I'm interested, of course, but I also know that doing this and passing and achieving it is going to get me high.
Listen, I think that's a great answer. I mean, if I would have asked if you would have asked me, why have you done so many? My endurance stuff is very different than your endurance stuff. Mine are, I'm measured in hours, not days. But even when all my running stuff and all my, the 4x4x48, it's like I'm a very accomplishment driven, and I love the sense of pride, and I love doing stuff that is hard and proving I can do it, and like that's what fills my bucket more than anything else. I think I would have answered it very similar to you. You gotta want it. There's got to be a reason, because I know a lot of people are looking at me, and I'm sure you have way more people looking and go, why? Why would you do that? Like,
and that's fine. And that's fine. And I think that's very, what you're saying is key, is it has to resonate within yourself. And so it's a big question. Why does that resonate within yourself and not something else? That's hard to answer, and that's where the introspection comes in, so I can give you a little bit of an answer, but I don't really know, it's related to everything that I've told you, military background, and that I've never really had, but also always fantasized about. And
well, let me ask you that about the military, because you've talked a lot about it, and you've shared that it was your dream. You always wanted to be an officer, if I recall correctly. Yeah. And you've gone back and accomplished so many other things. Why did you? And you've gone to war zone. Why do you think you never went back into that?
So for a very, very long time, too long that I should admit it, but I contemplated going to the French Legion, because it's a force that it's not that they accept everybody, but they have a tolerance, right? They just erase your background and they take you raw, and those guys they're hard, they do hard stuff, and so I think I'm driven by that, but I'm driven by that more than by killing another human being, which is the finality of when you're in the military, right? And it's something that's not advertised. Yeah. Okay. I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying that's just not for me, and I'm glad that I didn't go that path, because maybe I would have hesitated, and maybe that would have gotten me killed or something. Yeah. Okay. So
no, that's really interesting, because it sounds like you chose to do kind of you've chosen to be a hard person and do hard things without having the downside of having to go to war or kill somebody, or risk being killed. You can just go push yourself incredibly hard.
I don't know if
and
you
sleep in a hotel room in a dirty tent.
Exactly. So again, all respect to those guys, right? Somebody's got to do that.
We need them. Right?
We need them, exactly. But when you go on YouTube today and you look at raw footage of what's happening in Ukraine, it's
scary as hell.
It's a horror movie.
Yeah,
trenches, like. It's a horror movie, okay? So I'm very glad and fortunate that I've never had to go to do that, and I'm happy. But all respect to you, we need those guys for sure. And I love the military, I'm very pro law enforcement and all of that. But yeah, it took me years to understand that wasn't for me. Like I would have loved, and still today, I would love to go train with them in the jungle. Like as a matter of fact, what's funny is I keep fucking doing it. I send an email to an officer in Guyana. Guyana is next to Brazil, and we have a base of the French Legion, and they train in jungle warfare. I saw that one of their thing that they do is a 300-kilometer trek, because they want to do some surveillance of the territory, and they train, right? 2 weeks ago, I emailed them and I said, you know what? I could do a story on that if you allow me to come with you. And as I was writing it, I was just getting so pumped. I was like, oh my God, that's going to be so fucking cool. Okay, and that's also what I got from going to Iraq and Afghanistan. I got a test of it without having to carry a rifle and eventually have to kill somebody.
So are you waiting on them to email you back?
Hell yeah.
If they said, yeah, come on down, you're in.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think so.
300K trek.
In the jungle.
And that gets you fired
with the
up.
hardest motherfuckers on the planet. I mean, it's what's not to like? Dude, you can come with me.
I wouldn't be able to do it. I could go 3 kilometers, maybe. No, but again, it tells a story of who, I really, it's super interesting because I think you have, again, 8 years of 3 days a week of psychoanalysis. You get some clarity on what's important to you and how you want to get there and all that. But it's really, it's cool that you've, I think, found the ways to get what you were hoping for without the things that you don't want to have to be a part of.
Yeah, and being a film student and a film graduate, I actually wrote my thesis on the Vietnam War movies, Apocalypse Now, Platoon, The Deer Hunter, Born on the 4th of July. Born on the 4th of July it's almost like the history of my life, except that I didn't commit to be he goes to the Marines. Because when you're in your 20s, like you're saying, like who does hard shit? Who's going to test your limits? The military, okay? And it's true, right? But there's a side to that coin.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that.
And that side's not for me. And
understood.
I kind of feel bad saying it because I feel like but yeah, that side's just not for me,
Well,
I mean.
I wouldn't feel bad. I mean, you've gained clarity and you're shining a light on a lot of when you went there. Like your job is different. Your job is to shine a light on people or events or places, and we need that. It tells a big story. So, but let's you just brought up a good point on here. The very first ultra. Now you had already done. Did you do quite a few?
No.
Let me stop for a second. I'll get to it. You started with marathons.
Yeah.
You've done quite a few.
Yeah.
How many?
44.
44. Huh. When did you start doing those? How old were you when you started?
So right after that conversation with that the father of my friend, I came back to Paris and I registered for the Paris Marathon. And I was shaking. I was like, I don't know if I can do it. And then I did it. And I was like, oh, you know what? I can
do 43 more.
I can do a little bit more.
And then so over how many years? Like, were you packing in multiple you must have done quite a few.
No, so the number that's just here for the conversation, I don't care. Yeah. Okay, so but I've never.
I can tell you my numbers too, but nobody cares. But it frames your engagement in it, right? Like, you don't do 44 marathons just because. You do it because
kind of.
You want to see if you can get faster?
Well, first of all, some are amazing. Like I've done New York 9 times. It's an amazing event. Mm-hmm. And then I was invited to go do one in Sri Lanka. Then there was the one in Iraq. Then there's one in the southwest of France in the wine region. It's called the Médoc Marathon. And it's a wine marathon. So at each station, they give you wine. And it's a party, and you have
It's better than goose and bars,
isn't it? Yeah. And so every year there's a different theme. So you have to wear a costume, and then people are drunk and run a marathon, and the time doesn't matter. It's just
That's awesome.
It's a party, I mean, last time I ran it, I was with my wife actually, who wasn't my wife at the time. She was with her husband.
We're back to that story.
I was with my girlfriend. But a bunch of French men, actually, we go by a lake. They just removed their clothes, went into the lake for a swim, got their socks back on, their t-shirt back on, and continue running. It's just a whole.
That's the way marathon running should be. That's the way I want to run a marathon.
You don't care about your time.
I don't care. Nobody cares about my time, for sure. Okay, so you do 44 marathons.
Yeah, but
I can do more. So at what point during that period that you're doing those did you go, I'm going to try something longer?
But then Ironman came into it. Okay. Then because Ironman, you end up with a marathon. So I wanted to make sure. So
did you get pretty into Ironman?
Yeah.
Did you do a lot?
Yeah.
How many?
17.
Oh, I didn't know that part. Dude, I can't even count this. 44. You got 17.
Yeah.
Did you do Kona quite a few times?
No, I never qualified for Kona. Yeah.
I hear Nice is a pretty hard one.
I've done Nice quite a bit.
I would
yeah,
imagine.
Yeah, Nice is. So if you were going to ask me which one of your favorites, so Nice. Because Nice, the bike course is just spectacular. First of all, it's just one big loop. A lot of Ironman is like 2 loops, 3 loops, kind of boring. This one is just one big loop, and you go into all those old villages in the south of France, and it's just extremely beautiful. Okay.
I got introduced to Mark Knops. He lives right here. He was number 2 in his age bracket, but he's Belgian.
Okay.
But he lives right here. But he's done Nice and he's done Kona,
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
incredible at the top of the top.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's told me all these stories. But people always ask me, Mark, you've got a swim background,
Yeah.
an ocean background,
Yeah.
a cycling and a running. Why didn't you put them all together? I'm like, I don't want to work that hard. That was the difference.
Yeah.
I knew that's like a full-time job on the side of your full-time job.
It's very
and kids, and
time-consuming.
I never had it in me.
Yeah.
To
Training
put
for an
them all
Ironman
together.
is very time consuming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
So where does ultra come in? Because your list of ultra is pretty significant. as
So
well.
I think it really started in Chamonix. I was invited by, at the time was the North Face, invited me to go see the first UTMB Mont Blanc that they did in 2003. And I saw that, and I saw 80% of the people did not finish, and I was like, what the hell is that? I'm interested, And I just got, I don't know, something clicked, right? And so the next year I was there at the start line, but I had never done 100K. So my goal was to do 100K, was to reach the 100K mark. Because at the time, for me, 100K, man, that's like...
It's legitimate.
I mean, when I do that in my car, I'm like, okay, that's kind of boring.
Yep.
100K running, to me, it was like, something big. So I did that. I stopped at the 100K mark. And I remember, now I can say this, I remember almost being kind of a bitch about it, because I passed the finish line and I was feeling so bad that I wanted to see the doctor. Even though nothing was wrong with me, I was just exhausted. But I went to see the doctor, and I remember the doctor being like, okay, what is it? And I was just tired. I just wanted him to be nice to me. I just wanted to be comforted.
Like there's a couch over there.
Yeah, exactly. So then I did that, and then the year after I was like, okay, let's go for the 100 mile then. And that's where it get interesting for me, because my goal, actually I'm mixing up 2 stories. My goal that year, because the year before I did 90K. The goal when I did the 100 mile for me was to pass the 100K mark, because I had never done that, right? So that was the second time I tried it. And that was my goal. And then if I could keep going after that, that was just like cherry on the cake. But my objective, the mission, was 100K. And when I reached the 100K mark, I was like, I can do one more step. I can maybe go 1 more K. And the fact that I had completed the mission in my head, a weight was taken off my back, and I was like, whatever happens now, it doesn't matter, because my goal was 100K, and I did it. Okay, and then that year I finished the 100 mile.
So you got to 100K, and you're like, I got 40 more miles.
Yeah, now let's just enjoy it. It's just for fun. If I fail, it doesn't matter. I think that's how I find a way to take the pressure away. It's like, I kind of secretly want to do the 100 mile, but I'm not going to admit it to myself. I'm going to put a lower objective, because I know that if I do it, then it's going to give me such a kick, then the rest's not going to matter. Like, I don't know. I don't know, man. That's just how it works in my mind.
But that's where it began.
Yeah.
And you've gone on to do, again, you've done the Sahara, I can't even pronounce it, but you've done that 10 times.
The Marathon De Sables 10
so
times.
how many, again, ultras encapsulates a lot of different distances.
Yeah.
100K, 100
Well,
mile.
ultra, officially it's everything beyond marathon.
Yeah.
Right. If you're on 28 miles, that's
so
an
how
ultra.
many, I guess, using that definition, how many do you have there?
I don't know.
I know, there's a lot.
I don't know. Yeah, 500 mile. The hardest that I've done, it's called the Diagonale des Fous. It's in the Reunion Islands, so next to Madagascar, east side of Africa.
Good surf there, and a lot of sharks.
A lot of shark, like to the point where they
close the best waves there.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. In Saint-Lô, yeah. It's illegal to go surf there, because people got eaten.
Yep.
But they have an amazing trail race there. It's 100 mile. I've done it 1 time. It took me 49 hours, nonstop.
No sleep.
I think I slept 20 minutes on a stretcher, because that's just speed. But 49 hours.
49 hours.
Yeah, that's the longest I've done in
How much elevation
nonstop.
on that one?
Oh, a lot.
It's like 30,000.
Yeah, it's like 10,000 meters up, 10,000 meters down. It's like the UTMB. It's but it's an adventure.
See, I think lots of people, if you're not into the endurance space, you're listening to this going, wow, that's incredible. I go, fuck, I want to go do that so bad. My body just won't let me do it. Or my brain, whatever it is. That's incredible. And you have more coming. Like, you're not stopping. How old are you, for everybody's sake?
52.
And you're still just feeling good and going hard and not stopping?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still enjoying it. You know, I'm done doing 100 miles. I think 100 miles it's really, really hard. You know, because for me, it's always been 2 nights. You know, and the last 100K I did in Hong Kong, I had a hard time staying awake during one night. Getting older, I don't know. Yeah.
Did you hallucinate on that one?
No, I don't think I went far enough for that, but no. But a bunch of monkeys attacked our aid station at night.
Like
in the morning.
attack?
Like attack. Like they went for the food. Yeah. Like I was sleeping by a bench on the floor, just exhausted, like early morning. And then I hear a kid who's just banging 2 big jugs of water. And that wakes me up. And I see the kid and I'm like, can someone tell the kid to stop? Because, you know, I'm tired. And then a guy next to me, or another runner, is like, no, it's because we try to scare the monkey away. And I'm looking around me, and there's a bunch of little monkeys who are on us for the food, because it's an aid station, right? And so that's just a funny.
Wow.
Yeah.
You never know what's gonna. How's the run? Oh, it's good till we got attacked by a bunch of monkeys.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Listen, you've told me some stories, right? I researched. There's some funny stories, and this goes back to like the other side of endurance racing, traveling, journal writing internationally. Because you've done other stuff on these trips. Like you talked about the Honolulu Marathon in Afghanistan, but like you talked about I'll run through them real quickly in no particular order. An India snowboarding trip in Kashmir.
Well, I lived in India for 3 years.
Oh, you did?
Right? I moved to India for 3 years for work. Yeah. It's me and my English bulldog. I had an English bulldog named Key Lampai. She passed.
Key Lampai.
Key Lampai, yeah. I've tattooed Key Lampai on my butt.
No way.
Yeah.
I don't need to see that today.
No, you don't need to see that. But so me and Key Lampai moved to India for work.
Where were you in India?
So I was in Delhi for 2 years,
Oh, wow.
which is the political capital. And then I was in Ahmedabad, which is Gujarat. So west side, Gujarat has a border with Pakistan.
Wow.
And I was hired by an event company to set up a 100-mile race over there, foot race.
Wow.
So India was wild.
That's it.
I love India. I love Indian people. But India was wild. Like for me, coming from Europe, it was wild.
I spent 1 week there, but I was in the southern part and it was beautiful along the coast. But
in Kerala,
like I can't even remember.
Yeah, it's very jungly.
Very jungly, beautiful on the coast, but you go from the stunning natural beauty to the most incredible poverty coming from here.
Yeah, but they also have the most incredible wealth.
Right, and you have the caste system, so you have nothing in the middle, right?
Yeah,
and
it's difficult.
It was very eye opening for a college student to see that, and it was very memorable. I'll never forget it. I would love to go back and see more. But there's it's a giant country, and there's
it's so big. Yeah.
Billions of people.
Yeah.
You also talked about being arrested at gunpoint in India.
Yeah, snowboarding in Kashmir.
Was it the same trip when that happened?
No, snowboarding in Kashmir. So there's one resort, it's called Gulmarg. It's in Kashmir, and I don't know if you follow the recent events, but Kashmir is always where Pakistan fights India, and vice versa. So we go, me and my buddy, and we reach the gondola, right? That's the summit, and as we open the gondola door, there are kids, like 20-year-old, camouflaged.
So you've got a snowboard under your arm.
Yeah, we both got a snowboard.
Hey, we're having some fun.
Oh, what's going on here? And there's like Indian snipers, Indian military there, and they're very happy to see us, right? But they're trying to get warm in the gondola, and they said, and I'm like, what are you guys doing here? Where are the Pakistani snipers? Just a few, like, I don't know how far, but it's just right there. So we're fighting each other. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go down with my snowboard. So that was an experience. That was wild. Yeah.
Is that the same trip that you got arrested on?
No, that was in the desert. That was when the event management company hired me to.
When you were living there?
Yeah, I was living there in Ahmedabad. Yeah, so we went to a desert. It's called Rann of Kutch. It's a salt desert, and it's by the Pakistani border. So there's a zone that is completely empty, and it's a free fire zone. Like if they see you in that zone, both camps, they don't have to.
Don't be there.
Yeah, don't be there, right? And we were right at the edge of that with the event company. The event company was Indian, was local. They knew what they were doing, right? Except on that day, for whatever reason, there's a bunch of bases and the border security forces. They didn't know that I was there in the area, and I was thirsty. I didn't have any water in my backpack, and so I went to the base, and they were playing volleyball. And except one sentry, so he saw me put his AK-47 and started yelling at me in Gujarati, and I had no idea what he was saying, and he had no idea who I was. So anyway, it was just a weird situation. Fortunately, pretty quickly they understood that I was not a threat. I don't really look Pakistani, but they were like, "Why do you have a GPS watch? Why do you have a phone like that? What are you doing?" And I was telling them, I was like, "Well, I'm doing Reiki because we're going to run 100 miles." But they're like, "Why?" And I was giving them the answer, and they were like, "But why?" They could not comprehend. Yeah. But the funny thing about it, they ended up being very friendly, sharing tea with me, is the intelligence officer who somehow interrogated me, not nicely. I mean, I wasn't tortured or anything like that. He asked me for my Facebook account, and to this day, I don't have Facebook anymore, but for a very long time, he was sharing me stories of the snakes that he was finding, him and his,
just a normal
troops.
person, right?
Yeah, because he was like, "Well, you trekking with your trail running shoes, and you must see a lot of snakes." And I think we think it's funny because we go there with like boots, and we do see a lot of snakes too. And then he was sending me pictures. "Oh, look at the crate cobra that we see today, or the crate viper or the cobra," and so he became kind of my friend.
Isn't that amazing? Social media, you
Yeah.
can be arrested and interrogated, and then pretty soon
And then
you're
the guy's your
Facebook
friend.
friends.
Yeah.
It's really an incredible kind of talks about the world today. Like,
Yeah.
and
Well, it helps you to keep in touch with people.
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, like going back to this, a quote that I read from you about all of the stuff we're talking about is this, and it says, "One of my favorite things in life is traveling across the world to start an ultra, embrace a completely different culture, speak a different language, and perform at my best."
Adventure. It's an adventure.
It's an adventure.
Yeah.
Now, I also read one where it said, where is that one? Oh, "When I start an ultra, I feel like I'm going to war." Is that true?
Kind of.
With whom?
With myself. I mean, with the others also, I guess.
How do you feel when you start a race and you're looking at all the other people and you've got 100K or 100 miles ahead of you and you know it's going to be long, but when you're looking around who's on the line with you, what are you thinking?
So again, it's a very personal question, but I'm hoping that some of them will die trying, and I have to admit.
Hold on, let's define die.
Like,
I saw your air
well,
quotes.
yeah, because they don't really die. It's not war, right? But
like DNF. Or just coming behind you.
No, just.
You want to see people not complete it.
Yeah.
Why? What is that? What is that?
I don't know, man. I don't know, but it's true that it's a motivation. When I pass people and they're not feeling good, when they're vomiting, when they're like, they're hurting, they can't do no more, they're crying because they're in pain. Because I've been there. Well, and I'm not like them. I'm passing them. I'm feeling like, well, you're hurting.
It was my day today.
But it's I'm winning and you're hurting. And I don't know. It's just a sport.
It's the
thing.
competitive spirit.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Hey, listen, if you're trying to run for 49 hours, you need some mojo. Like whatever gets you through.
I know.
I'm sure you'd love to have a beer with them or a tea with them afterward, but during the event, like Michael Jordan would eat you for lunch playing, but afterward he might be your buddy, right? Like that's sport. Or not.
Yeah, or not. I think I'll have a beer with the one who finished.
Oh, okay. All right. If you don't finish, you're off the reservation.
No, I mean, it's sports, okay? But yeah, my people, they finish.
The competitive
If you don't
spirit.
finish.
My people, they finish. Yeah. All right, I heard it. All right, if you don't finish, don't expect to get Christmas cards.
Or do it again, Like my friend Paul Templer, who finished MDS after his third attempt. Paul who got...
Can you tell the story? No. Well, I know, but no.
Paul has an incredible story. He was a young guide, a nature guide in Zimbabwe, and one day, it's a long story, he wrote a book about it, but to rescue one of his clients from falling in the water, an hippo came from underwater, grabbed him, a hippo. He was full on the mouth of the hippo, head first to the waist, okay? And he was like, and the hippo took him under, released him, took him under like 3 times. Anyway, long story, he lost an arm. Okay, he barely survived it, but he lost an arm. And Paul, who I love dearly, I'd never met him, but I met him in the Marathon De Sables one day, and I'm helping him. He's starting talking. Short story, it took him 3 years to finish it. So we finished it together last year, the MDS. And that was one of the best experience ever, not just because he's my friend, but because I helped him, he helped me. I gave him shit, he gave me shit, and we had a blast, in that crazy event. And actually I wrote about it, and I wrote that at some point I was just mad at him, but really mad at him. I love him to death, but I was mad at him because he was stronger than me. In the race, and on paper, I'm the one who's taking him. I've always finished it, and he was like, he had DNF twice. So I was like thinking, what the hell's going on? He's stronger than me, and that pissed me off.
It's amazing what sport and life can teach you, because, in one hand, you were just a moment ago talking about how, hey, if we're doing this and I see you suffering on the side, you don't get a Christmas card. But for somebody like him, who had a physical trauma, you gave him extra love and helped him get it done over the next couple of years.
Yeah.
So you do have a soft spot in your heart, apparently, somewhere.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, he deserved it, in my mind, because I think when I saw him struggle the first year, I projected myself into him, and I was like, okay, would I be brave enough to even start the race if I was him, And I don't have the answer to that. So I was like, I'm going to respect that guy no matter what happens to him, and I'm going to help him because he looks like he needs it, and I'm happy to help him and provide him all the advices. So I was taking the second year, he also DNF, and I was remembering him to take him. I was taking him to the doctor. It was just a brotherhood. That was, it was the beginning of a brotherhood. Yeah,
that's really cool.
Written in blood, not war blood, but endurance sport blood.
Blood, sand, dirt, and time.
And
right?
Scorpions.
And scorpions. Nobody can see it, but there's sometimes he giggles and his eyes get really, and I can see that trick, the switch flips, and I'm guessing when you're on the line, that's the look that people would see. Like, I'm going to smash this thing. Like, just interesting. But you can't do what you do. This goes back to what Goggins and all the elite athletes talk about, even Kobe and people that talk about Kobe Bryant. Like, if you want to do exceptional things, you cannot be average. Like, you can't think of things the way, quote unquote, normal people do about doing something when you want to go do something that's extraordinary. Like, doing these events takes a whole different level of commitment, training, preparation, mental fortitude.
Okay.
Right?
But,
doesn't it?
Yeah, but what I would say, and this is very important for me, is the people you just mentioned, they are extraordinary. They've done extraordinary things. Okay. I am not a pro athlete. I'm just a guy who enjoys those sports like other guys. Like, there are guys out there, not many, okay, who've done more than 10 MDS. Not many, I give you that. Okay. But some people have done 30 Ironman. Not many, again, but it's all relative.
Listen, so I'm not saying that you're going to get a star on the athletics Hall of Fame wall.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, to be able to do what you do or those other people, even like just to do those, you can't just show up and do it. There's so much commitment, and again, you can train the hardest, you can train, but to be in the middle of a 100-mile run with 15,000 more feet of elevation ahead of you takes something different than most people are willing to. Not that they couldn't.
Exactly.
But that you have to be able and willing to go to places that doesn't happen naturally or easily. You really have to train, prepare, and have a level of, what's the word, of just grit to be able to do it.
Yeah, I like that word, grit. Yeah.
I give you and anybody, like, you would probably say, Mark, anybody can do this if they want to do the work.
But more people can do it than, a lot of people can, actually, And I think that's the only way for me to connect to Goggins, Kobe, people like that. We're all humans. They are at next level, but at my little level, I'm a human being like you, like everybody who's listening to this podcast, and you can do things like that. And we see it every day. People fight. We all have different fights. People, there are survivor stories all over the world. I give you a good one. My grandfather, POW in German camps, He's with his buddy, and he's like, dude, if we ever come back to our wives, I want you, my grandfather says, I want you to design a ring for my wife, because his friend is a jeweler. I said, all right, deal, dude, if we live through this. They lived through it. They went back to Paris. That guy designed a ring to my grandmother. My grandmother passed. She gave it to my mom. My mom's still here, but she gave me the ring, and I gave it to my wife that I love dearly. And this ring is from 1940s, 1945, you know, and it has a story, right? So those two guys, that's a survival story. It's, you know, to me, that's one of the most beautiful stories in my life.
Yeah.
So there are people around us, like everybody has their own fight, their own, you know, stories, their own struggles. And I guess for me, psychoanalysis and ultra running or triathlon has helped me tremendously to stay in the fight, you know?
Yeah, I love it. And I love that story about that ring.
Yeah,
that is super
you.
special. Listen, last story, and then, because this isn't, I was going to
be a good one.
No. This is you've changed your name recently, because I was going to ask, where can people, if people want to find, there's a lot online for people to find articles, all the stuff we've been talking about. You've written so much, but to be able to find it might take an understanding of this story. And I'll put it in the podcast notes and everything, but give us the story on, you've recently changed
my
your
name 2 years ago. Yeah. Because I had my father's name, you know, Couturier was my name. And then when I was 18, my father left us, my mom and I, for another woman. He moved to Chile, actually. And it's a long story, but one day he told me that you're not my son anymore.
Oh, wow.
And I was obviously shocked, and I didn't know how to respond. And years later, I realized that he was never coming back because he just didn't want it. And so I felt, you know what, if that man doesn't want me as his son, I don't want him as my father. You know, so I'm just gonna give away his name, and I'm gonna get the name of my mom and my grandparents that I've been talking, that I respect and love. And so today I'm carrying that name proudly, and I give up that shitty other name. So be it. Moving on. You know? Well,
that's a big move too. Listen, both of those names is where where people will find your articles. So I'll be sure to include it. Who are you writing for now?
So,
if people wanted to go find you right now, how do they find articles?
Ultra Running, this is the media that I work for. And I also work at Snail Space. It's a running shop in Mission Viejo. So if people want to come and chat with me, I work there part-time. And this is a good way to start. I'm also on X, Gael Dutigny, so I'm starting to create something. It's called French Mad.
French Mad.
Yeah, it's not French Man, but it's French Mad, you know. So I don't know if it's going to be French Mad training, French Mad coaching. And I really don't know how to address it or deal with it. I'm happy to share my experiences. I'm happy to let anybody know how I did it, because they can do it too. And so whoever want to come to me, and, you know, we'll talk.
Awesome.
I'll get you to destroy your opponents.
I saw the eyes flicker. You know what's funny is that the gorilla with the red eyes.
Yeah.
I think it was a mirror
of me,
of you at that time.
I don't know.
I think that's what you saw. You saw yourself.
That guy wanted to eat me. No.
Gael, this has been amazing. Kudos on all you've done.
It's an
incredible
honor.
storytelling. There's got to be a book. I know a guy that writes. Maybe that guy can write his biography, because it's really incredible what you've done. And there's just so much, there's twists and turns.
I would like that, actually.
You should get to that.
Yeah.
That should
you know
be
a publisher? Let me know.
And we can get there too. Listen, thanks so much. Super
Thank
cool.
you.
Keep going. I can't wait to see you do next.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, buddy.